airport and in a plane hangar of sorts. And this will be one of the performance stages that will feature some of the dancers that will be performing tomorrow. Here they have, it's like there's definitely kind of a steampunk vibe to the Software Circus event. This is an event really that focuses on container technologies and cloud native ecosystems, and a lot of people from that community are here. So it really is an event really for them, for them and others to get together and talk about really next generation architectures and software and really the underlying hardware that's changing quite a bit too. So we're going to be spending the next few days talking to people about how container technologies are maturing and what that means for the IT person, the customer who is thinking about implementing these new technologies, because when you're starting to think about large-scale distributed architectures and systems, you need to think really about, well, how is that going to affect our existing infrastructure? And a lot of that requires things like networking and storage. And the companies that are building these new technologies are working very actively in the open source communities. And what they're doing is building out these new extenders, really, so Kubernetes actually, which is really built for stateless environments, can be used for stateful purposes as well. We're seeing more examples of that in production right now, but we're just at the beginning of that, so there's a lot of work to be done inside the open source communities themselves. We're going to be seeing presentations, and what's fun about the Software Circus, so given that context about kind of what the themes you'll hear from the people at this conference. But what you'll see here at the events is like actually these vendors who are sponsoring it act as performers. They actually are kind of on stage. They're actually telling their stories. They're not allowed to use PowerPoints. And one person we talked to said like, oh my gosh, I have to do a presentation without PowerPoint. And I'm like, man, you guys are so dependent on those PowerPoints. What's up with that? And he's like, yeah, I know. And so I saw some of the practices, and it was interesting because it reminded me of coaching that I've done with people in the past, where like executives aren't really used to public speaking, and so you're asking them, what do you mean by that? And how would you say that differently? And do people know that term? Is that something they understand? So these actors are actually kind of like facilitating the discussions with these with these technologies to help them kind of better tell their story, which I think is awesome. So what we're trying to do is kind of like get the rhythm and and tell the story here. And so what we'll be doing is going to different spots on the Software Circus field, so to speak, and doing interviews from those different places. Hopefully we'll get a fire thrower here, or maybe some dancer or something to join us in some of the conversations. But that's kind of how it is here, and we're gonna keep on. We're going to interview at least 10 people today and tomorrow, and I'm really interested in talking to people, for instance, who are like with banks or with e-commerce companies who are now building out a more distributed infrastructure, because this new wave really does affect not just the huge enterprise companies, but the mid-sized companies as well, that maybe are like looking at their second generation of architecture, and how are they going to be thinking about how they build out that architecture? They've traditionally been on physical servers even, right? So so we're going to be talking to them about how they think about what they're going to be putting into production for as far as container technologies go. Keep going.
I'm going to pan over here real quick.
Okay. So this is nope. So you can see the big tent a little bit over here. So we can even go in. Yeah, and so this is So now we're approaching the big tent, which is right through here. You want to go in? And we're going to go into the big tent here. There we go. And through here. There we go. And here we are, inside the big tent. you can see how they're working with the sponsors like ING. So this is like the ING stage. So we'll be talking to ING folks. There's a KPN group is over here, I believe. There's lots of interesting discussions. I saw one by Michael Ducey of Chef over here, and he was talking about diversity, but from a real interesting point of view and context. The Atlassian folks were doing their own presentation, as was the folks from Bull.com, where they were talking about their own e-commerce platform, which I was referencing earlier. Yeah, so this is center stage here. Will be there. There's going to be a big performance. We saw it yesterday, earlier in the day. Really, really cool. Anyway, that's kind of a look at the tent. This is a real circus tent.